So last episode we finished the tea party and the question mark tea party, I guess, and we finished ranking the characters from the first episode. Now we go on to the second episode. Episode 2, Turn of the Golden Witch. Good morning. The Golden Witch had been waiting impatiently for you. Please take your seat opposite her at the table. Have you rested well and deliberated over how you will play? The witch has high expectations of you and is determined to come at you right from the opening. I too am looking forward to observing your moves. The difficulty level is first rate. The witch plans to make you surrender in an instant. I won't give up to Beatrice. I won't. So I'm thinking that Beatrice is going to use the characters in different settings, or maybe it's like Higurashi where it loops. So we're starting with Shannon. She didn't have much screen time last. Oh. Okay, that's nice. Shannon found a pair of hammerhead sharks playfully swimming in the tank and made a fuss like a grade schooler seeing an aquarium from the first time. So both of them are on a date.
食べちゃいたいくらいだよ。そんなのかわいそうです。知ってますか？水族館に来て美味しそうなんて言い出すのは世界中でも日本人だけなんだそうですよ。
I'll say it right here. I'm not the biggest fan of George.
そうなんだ。アメリカ人でもイタリア人でもきっと食べちゃいたいって言うと思うよ。その似合ってるよ。その服。本当に。
Shannon embraced her chest with both hands in embarrassment. She apparently felt like she was being made fun of for wearing these clothes that she wasn't used to. Even though George's face didn't show it, the truth was that even he was surprised at how easily those tremendous words had left his lips. And he was as embarrassed as Shannon on the inside. However, when he saw how embarrassed Shannon was, he started to feel as though he was teasing the girl he liked. Instead of embarrassment, ticklish amusement welled up in him. Yeah, I would feel embarrassed as a 23-year-old man for dating a 16-year-old. Okay, enough of the bites, I guess. Wait, that isn't just a feeling. I really am teasing the girl I like. It pains me to admit it, but I used to think that such an embarrassing expression had fallen so far out of use they no longer showed up even in manga. On the contrary, if I'd seen a couple acting like that, I'd have felt like throwing rocks at them. I feel like that right now. However, even if rocks were thrown at us now, I'm sure they would be just like confetti, celebrating us. No, I'm hurling words of abuse towards you, George. Now, I can't even remember those lonely days when I felt jealous of couples who were completely oblivious to their surroundings. To use an old-fashioned phrase, these would be truly rose-colored days. I was so entranced that I no longer even noticed the big tank of the world's largest aquarium. Instead, I saw only Shannon happily playing with the fish, all her changing emotions showing on her face.
すごいですね。クジラを泳がせることができる大水槽なんて初めて見ました。この大水槽がここの最大の売りだそうだからね。なんでも世界で最大なんだそうだよ。そうなんですか。それはすごいですね。本当に素敵です。 水槽じゃなくて、まるで海の一部をナイフでスッと切り取ってここに運んできたみたい。
そうだね。これはもう立派な小さな海だね。
Despite its size, I hadn't thought of the tank as anything more than a tank. That's why I thought her expression about slicing off a part of the sea with a knife was so interesting. No matter how far humans broaden their experiences, in the end, they can only hold a single personal worldview. Maybe that's why it's so interesting to interact with someone who has a different worldview. I said that to her honestly, and she responded.
確かに、これは本当の海ではないかもしれません。でも、ここに泳ぐ彼らが海だと信じたなら、これは確かに海なんです。
I'm a more pessimistic sort of guy, so what if they think they are in a tank instead of the sea and are struggling? How would you feel?
たとえ有限の水槽の中だったとしてもね。
海だって有限ですよ。仮に無限だったとしても、私たちは生きているうちにどれほどの広さを行き来できるんでしょうね。
I heard they can't get great white sharks on aquariums because they die.
きっと、それは海よりずっと狭い。
確かに皮肉な話だね。世界はこんなにも広いのに、僕たち人間のほとんどは自分の国からも出ずに生涯を終える。
The problem is here that fishes and people are different. There are some species that travel long distances in the sea, so kind of missing the comparison.
そこが完成された世界だと信じられるなら、たとえ狭い井戸の底だったって立派な世界で海なんです。そこに住むカエルにとっては。
Shannon, who spent her days as a servant on a small island, 10 kilometers in the circumference called Rokkenjima, said that with a smile. Guess I shouldn't bring my pessimistic worldview. Oh, another one. Turn of the Golden Witch. So we're starting with Shannon and George. Are they going to be the main characters this time around? Show me a Battler. I would love for more Shannon screen time. Maria as well. George and Jessica are... I guess they can still redeem themselves, but... As unexpected as it is, I want more Ava, I want more Rudolf, I want more Kyrie, Rosa as well, I want more. Nanjo, I'm done. Genji, I want more. Shannon and Kanon, yes, more screen time. Goda, no. Oh, Beatrice, there she is. She's in the beginning of the... Oof. So, as I suspected, they're going to be like 8 episodes of... Oh. After we finished walking through the whole aquarium, we had a slightly late afternoon lunch at a restaurant with a nice view. So right now we're in George's head. Right now we're with his narration, I guess. Any boy's heart will jump at the sight of a buffet. I myself was like that in the past. But with Shannon besides me, this buffet felt different. I couldn't shamefully make a huge pile of nothing but my favorite foods. I was, how should I put it, worried about my appearance, and chose a menu suited for a snob: toast, salad, and coffee. If I were by myself, I'd made a pile of greasy stuff like yakisoba, mashed potatoes, gratings, and the like.
シャノンはそんな程度でお腹が足りるのかい？だとしたら、男ってのは本当に燃費の悪い生き物らしいね。
別にそういうつもりじゃなくて。
She's just making a joke. On Shannon's tray, there was only tea and salad. Maybe the very idea that she could get away with at least one more dish indicated that I was thinking with my male stomach.
ジョージ様こそ、それで足りるんですか？男の方はもう少し召し上がった方が良いかと思います。普段のジョージ様だったら、もう少しお昼を召し上がられていると思いますよ。
しまった、そうか。シャノンには僕が本家で昼食をとるとき、どれくらい食べてるのかバレてるんだったね。
I have less tact than George, so in a date I usually just eat as much as I like. I don't really care. I love food.
はい。だから今日はお腹の具合でも悪いのかと思いまして。
Then again, it's more like the food I choose, not the amount. I don't eat a lot of food, but I really am. I just pick my favorite foods. I don't care. Shannon was showing concern that I wasn't feeling well. Apparently, I had made her worry with my stupid attempt to impress her. And in any case, it didn't seem like my stomach was going to let me keep up this pretense up any longer.
いやもう白状するよ。ついついカッコつけちゃってね。女の子と一緒だからって遠慮しちゃって。
Dude, she serves you food in Rokkenjima, so she knows. Come on.
だと思いました。親族会議でのお昼の食べっぷりから考えて、それではとても足りないと思いましたので。
But I guess George isn't in Rokkenjima every time, so she only serves Jessica, I guess.
遠慮なさらずに、どうぞもう一皿を取りに行ってきてくださいね。
Man living in the island with...
ずるいな。僕ばっかり恥ずかしいよ。
Man living in the island with Kingzo must be a fucking nightmare.
じゃあ、シャノンはどうなんだい？普段からこんな小食で、後宮家のお勤めがこなせるのかい？
And Cross isn't a good father, so... Shannon grew silent and blushed bright red. Apparently I wasn't the only one putting on a front. And I realized that my embarrassment disappeared completely.
なんだ、シャノンもそれじゃ足りないんじゃないか。そうだよ、そうだよ。普段のランチなら、もう少し量が多いものをペロリと平らげてたよ。
女の子のお腹は魔法でできてるから、これでも平気なんです。
well, like, Hanyu.
ということは、僕たちは互いに見えっ張りだったってことになるね。
Is Hanyu going to appear in this? Maybe Ewa from Higurashi Go is going to appear as well.
もう遠慮はなしにしないかい？
I smiled to show that I wouldn't make fun of her anymore and stood up from the seat.
せっかく沖縄まで来たのに、ゴーヤを食べないのはもったいないからね。
I mean, Rika is here as well, so maybe... I don't know.
ゴーヤの炒め物でも持ってくるよ。シャノンも一緒に行こうよ。
It's implied that Rika beat Satoko, so maybe Satoko is dead.
ほらほら。
To anyone watching us, we might have seen like a pretty humorous and, above all, embarrassing couple. But it's only after becoming a couple that you realize this banter means the world to us and is our world. So no matter how cold the looks we might have been getting from other people, we won't even notice. Indeed, at this age, I finally understand the feelings of couples who want endlessly flirt without any regard to their surroundings. After I returned to a plate piled up with fried food, Shannon arrived with a lovely cake. While laughing at our fake stoicism, we resumed our lunch.
せっかく海を一望できる展望レストランなのに、あいにくの曇天が悔やまれるね。
Oh yeah, this place must be very expensive. Our window seats, which we were lucky to get, showed us a seaside scenery, so grandiose that it didn't even fit the entirety with our field of vision. However, because of the cloudy sky, it was a far cry from its normal beauty.
そうですね。晴れていたら、さぞや真っ青な海を見せてくれたでしょうに。
そうだね。普段、ロッケン島で海を見慣れてると思うけど、ここの海はきっと格別な青さを見せてくれたはずだよ。残念だな。
あ、でも、お仕事の最中に見る海は、どんなに青くても灰色と同じです。
So I'm trying to remember Shannon's backstory. So she comes from a place called Gospel House. That's with ownership of Kinzo. So he trains these kids that are orphans to become his servants at the Rokkenjima mansion.
でも、今日はお仕事中じゃないから。
They said that Shannon and Kanon were just there on the last episode because they were unlucky to get the shift. Apparently, Shannon was doing her best to say an embarrassing line, but I agreed harshly.
惜しいな。ジョージ様と二人きりで見る海なら、たとえ灰色でも真っ青に見えます。って言えたら、100点満点でご褒美だったんだけどな。
すみません。
ご褒美は何だったか聞きたい？
聞いてもいいものでしたら。
ダメ。教えない。
ずるいですよ、そんなの。
When I was in elementary school, I was always the kid that got bullied. When everyone teased me, I grew nervous and speechless to the delight of the bullies. Back then, I wondered why everyone teased me. But now, teasing Shannon like this, I understand why. This is so much fun. I can play with her emotions however I please. I can have them all to myself. Fucking... I already made my thoughts known about this couple. Right now, I can think of any higher pleasure. Which is exactly why I have to treat her lightly. Don't want her to get embarrassed and have a bad time. So I decide to end the topic there and then. It's no good to be too persistent.
お昼が終わったら海岸を歩いてみないかい？ひょっとすると雲が晴れて素敵な海が見られるかもしれないよ。
そうですね。行ってみたいです。
うん、そうしよう。でも、そのケーキも本当に美味しそうだね。僕も同じものを持ってこようかな。
いけません。お昼にそんなに食べた上にケーキまで食べたら太っちゃいますよ。ジョージ様は秀吉様の血が濃いみたいですから、気をつけないとおデブさんになっちゃいます。
I'm just imagining George being fat.
じゃあシャノンは僕がおデブになったら嫌いになっちゃう？
Please say yes.
僕はたとえシャノンがおデブになっちゃっても嫌いにならないよ。
I doubt it.
そういう意味じゃなくて、ちゃんと体を気遣わないと健康にって。
母さんにもよく注意されるよ。
Right.
そういう意味じゃなくて、ちゃんと体を気遣わないと健康にって。
やっぱり僕も太極拳とかを始めて運動しないとダメかな。
Man, Shannon really inherited the genes of Hanyu.
ダイエットは無茶な運動よりも食生活の見直しから始めた方がいいんですよ。その上で運動を重ねないと効果が出ないんだそうです。
つまりそれはデザートのケーキは控えろってことだね。じゃあ仕方ないからシャノンがそのケーキを頬張るところを眺めていてあげるよ。
Can I just say that I really don't like the foggy glasses? the archetype of characters.
その、
I don't know, the sprite makes me uncomfortable.
ケーキ丸々一つはさすがに食べ過ぎだと思いますけど、半分くらいだったら大丈夫かもしれません。
And I have glasses too.
これ、本当に美味しいんですよ。
Shannon cut her own cake and tried to move half to my salad plate. I had no doubt that she wanted to share the flavor of delicious cake with me. Even so, I deliberately and meanly pulled my plate away from her. She blinked, her eyes in surprise. She couldn't seem to figure out if it was a refusal of the cake or not. So I winked, opened my mouth, and said, "Ah."
それが一番したかったんですね。もう、ジョージ様は甘えん坊です。はい、
While still wearing an embarrassed, exasperated face, Shannon offered the cake to me with a fork. Chomp. Tastes like cheap chocolate cake you could find anywhere. Hey, I love chocolate cake. Take that back. Don't make me hate you even more. Still, it was exceptional. Because eating cake was such an embarrassing way, as if we were the ultimate stereotypical lovey-dovey couple, had been my dream for many years. It made this cake's flavor heavenly. If the earth is destined to end someday, I wouldn't have had any regrets if it happened right then. It was such a moment of bliss. After that, we gathered shells, ran from the water waves, and enjoyed each other's company while walking along the beach. In the end, the clouds never parted. However, we both believed that our eyes were still reflecting a deep blue sea.
なんだか幸せすぎて怖くなります。
たまに言うね。何を怖がることがあるんだい？
私、後宮家にお仕えする使用人です。
What she's saying is that she's a slave to the Ushimiya family. Ava dislikes her. Natsuhi dislikes her as well.
そんな私が後宮家に連なる方とこうしてご一緒してるなんて、その過ぎたことのように思えて。
僕もびっくりしてるよ。
I see, so that's the direction they're taking her character.
シャノンちゃんと出会ったのは昨日今日のことじゃない。何年も前から面識もある。
From that I can also see the direction George is going.
でも年に何度もない親族の会合の席で挨拶をするだけ。そんな君とこうして一緒に過ごせる関係になるなんて全然想像できなかったよ。それはシャノンもでしょ？
私はその想像だけはしてました。いえ、想像というよりは妄想みたいなもので、いつも紳士的で思いやりのあるジョージ様とご縁があったらなって、妄想してただけで。
じゃあ僕たちの縁は君のその信じた心のおかげだね。思う力には魔法が宿るんだよ。
Oh, magic again.
だからその魔法がきっと僕らを巡り合わせてくれた。
Is George remembering the last episode?
そうですね。多分きっとそれは本当に魔法だったんだと思います。
Because George and Shannon were in the tea party.
でもね、そんなことはないんだよ。
Then again, I don't know if this is... I don't know how this all works yet.
僕の中でも毎年出会うたびに美しく見違えていった君の存在はとても大きくなっていた。
I'm thinking this will be like a Higurashi type deal where we focus on different characters each time. Maybe, I don't know.
そして君にとっての僕も同じものだとしたなら、 今日ここに僕らがあることは必然の結果であって魔法や奇跡なんかじゃないのさ。
Because she isn't wearing the ring, so this is before conference.
奇跡はあったんです。
The last episode.
ジョージ様。
She stopped at the water's edge and gazed beyond the sea.
奇跡？
魔法あったんです。
I was bewildered by that slightly mysterious expression, which I sometimes heard her use.
魔法が？
はい、魔法です。言っても信じてくれないでしょうから言います。でも確かにその魔法には私とジョージ様を巡り合わせてくれる奇跡を叶える力がありました。
それは何かのおまじないのこと？
そうですね。そういうものの類かもしれません。一つ違うのはおまじないなんかじゃなく本当に本当の魔法だったという点です。
Perhaps Shannon isn't alone in wanting to credit an encounter or on a miracle, or on chance. It might be a universal thing all girls share. For a man like me, an encounter with a girl is 70% effort to try to please her, and 20% raw courage, and only 10% chance. What she believes to be everything carries little relative weight within me. Maybe that way of thinking isn't self-calculating and typical of men. But were I to express that in words, any kind of magic would be broken. I did think that to become this close had taken many fortuities, concessions, and great efforts from both of us. We have this private time together now, only as a result of all those things put together. And if she wants to call that magic, well, that isn't strange in the slightest. That's why I answered her the way I did.
そうだね。同じ運命を100回繰り返したら、僕と君がこういう関係になる結果は一度しか起こらないものだったかもしれないね。
Yeah, they're talking about loops.
互いを意識し合いながらも、僕たちは他人行儀な関係を今も続けていたかもしれない。そんなよその世界の僕らから見れば、今の僕たちはまさに奇跡のような関係に違いないだろうから。
Didn't Ewa say in Higurashi-go that the accumulation of memories persists?
そういうのじゃなくて、本当に魔法なんです。男の方にいくら言ってもこういうのは信じてもらえないんでしょうか。カノン君も全然信じてくれませんし。
信じるよ。僕が信じなくて魔法が解けたら嫌だからね。
Battler is doing the exact opposite.
ジョージ様。
Trying to not believe in Beatrice, even though she's right in front of him. In a small voice, I apologize for making light of her magic. All this music, though. Let me raise the music. Oh! I saw... In a small voice, I apologize for making light of her magic. Those words seemed to make Shannon a lot happier. After all, if a pair of people believes in the magic of love, it becomes eternal.
そうそう。僕からわがままが一つあるんだけど、聞いてもらえないかな。
はい？何でしょうか？
そのジョージ様って呼び方。
Oh, this is a flashback, I guess. Then.
嫌いじゃないけど、
yeah, she doesn't have the ring.
もうなしにしないかい？
He's going to say, "Oh, call me Georgie's son," or something.
もちろん後宮家では対面もあるだろうから、ロッケン島での普段まで強制はしないよ。でも二人きりの時はなしにしよう。うん、そういうルールにしよ
う。ルールですか。もし破ったらどうなるんでしょう。
そうだね。ルール違反には何か罰ゲームがないといけないかもしれないね。 そうだな。
Oh, he's pushing the glasses up.
聞きたい？
いえ、聞きたくありません。
何がいいか、僕も考えておくことにするよ。
はい、ジョージさん。
素敵な響きだね。嬉しいよ、シャン。
私も、サヨという名前があります。
Oh.
はい。
素敵な響きだね。嬉しいよ、シャノン。そっか。ルールはフェアじゃないといけないね。僕もそれを守って、今から君のことをサヨと呼ぶことにするよ。いいね。
So basically,
サヨ。
はい。
So basically, Kinzo names them. So they have a real name, and then Kinzo names them with the on character. I put my arm around her shoulder and held her close. The delicate body was pulled irresistibly towards me, and she leapt into my chest like a doll. Come on, man. As I held her head in my arms, we looked at the horizon together.
真っ青な海だね。この海を二人で見られてとても嬉しいよ。
私もです。この真っ青な海をあなたと二人で見ることができてとても嬉しいです。
As we gazed at the gray sea and light rain began to sprinkle down, we kept listening to each other's heartbeats. Oh. Sound of waves soaked in my ears. No, this was the sound of raging waves. My body bathed in a painfully cold splashes did not allow me to forget memory of the day where my old fate was broken and smashed. In the past, tomorrow had been literally like a mirror to me. All I could see it in was the same me that existed today. My tomorrow would never be any different from my today. That was my old fate. But at that moment, for the first time, I saw a different fate beyond the mirror. The witch whispered, "Oh." She tempted me to take a bite out of the fruit of knowledge. She tormented me, saying that as long as I sat in the paradise of God, I would remain furniture. And so I learned of love and decided to choose to become a person. Those days were like sweetly melting honey. But then I hadn't realized that they were the beginning of days filled with a new kind of suffering. Taking a motorboat that I had just been told about, I made my way into this islet. No, I couldn't possibly call it an islet. It'd be more appropriate to call it a reef. It had a torii and a small shrine for the local deities. Didn't in the first episode when we were in the boat, wasn't there a shrine gate that disappeared? If I remember correctly, it was struck down by lightning. Oh, no fucking way. Lightning means Beatrice. It was probably built to worship the guardian deity of Rokkenjima. Even though I didn't know the exact meaning, I understood that it had a holy significance. Despite being in a place like this, I took one more look around to see if there was anyone observing me. The only things I could see were the stormy ocean and Jima looking in the distance, the waters and the waves breaking against Rokkenjima's steep cliffside. I readied myself, timidly approached the small shrine, and took up the mirror that had been placed there. It was an old-looking mirror, dim and dirty. If it were an ordinary mirror, that would probably give you a terribly bad impression of its value. However, since the mirrors had been offered to the small shrine, the quality made me feel some kind of divinity from it. And I realized this was not merely a mirror. Even if it was nothing more than an old-looking mirror to a non-believer like myself, In actuality, it was a mirror that had an important meaning. Is it really alright to break it after being captivated by honeyed words? No, this is no mirror. It's the inescapable life I have lived until today, my fate. Is this the... Is this the point of view of the culprit? Or maybe the point of view of an accomplice? Break it, and seize a life from beyond the mirror. Because remember in the first episode, the motive was to break free, to cast away the shackles or something. If I don't break it, my life will forever be a pair of facing mirrors. Nothing will ever change in the slightest. The witch whispers. She tempts me to take a bite of the fruit of knowledge. Or maybe I had already had a taste of that fruit. Because I ended up knowing those maddening emotions. Is this Shannon? Just as Adam and Eve felt compelled to pluck the fig leaf, I can no longer go without breaking this mirror. I fought with conflict for many days. Inside my heart, the virtuous part of me and the part that sided with the witch repeatedly fought each other. And now, here I am. Did the part of me who is here win or lose? There's only one thing I know. To obtain something, you must be ready to lose something. The cowards who don't risk loss and never try to change anything will never be given the key to open the path to a new future. Now, maybe this is George. The key is already in my hands. It is to break this. To break it. Is there any other effort I can make as furniture? Oh, no, it's Shannon. As furniture imprisoned on Rokkenjima? No. There's nothing but this. Come, have courage. I'll free myself from being mere furniture. And I'll accept my new sufferings and become human. These are surely the small and large trials I must impose on myself. Now, break it. Break the eternally unchangeable fate that imprisons me into pieces. I raised it high. Thought back on all those days of conflict. And after that time, far too brief to do them justice, I finished my reflections and threw it. The thunder roared, crying out against me for my outrageous act. It was truly the wrath of the angels, preparing to banish me from an eternal paradise. I looked down on the mirror, tumbling at my feet, broken in 2 equal parts, and having made sure that I have accomplished my task, I looked up at the enraged sky and screamed. Yeah. 約束は守りました。今度はあなたが約束を守ってくれる番ですよね。The thunder roared once more. Wow, her voice actress. I had already been banished from paradise. So I would have to struggle by myself in order to live. The witch had said it. That's the single element of the world. To lose it means to lose the world. Like how a flask with a hole in the bottom can't be filled, no matter how much water you scoop into it. Wow, her voice actress. Still, oh, the opening is the same from the first one. Let's try to analyze it. So the painting, the other gates missing, shrine gate missing. Battler, Maria again. Oh. I guess I shouldn't look too closely. But there were a lot of characters with leotards. I am a little bit interested. Oh, I can see BERNKASTEL. Oh, I see it. She was there in the opening. I didn't see it before. Can you just tell that I love BERNKASTEL's voice actress? Rika, actually. I don't know if I should call her BERNKASTEL or Rika. I don't know. I guess she's Frederica BERNKASTEL, but my mind wandered back to the days where I could barely imagine the happiness I have today. I was a middle schooler at the time, an ordinary girl who dreamed about love, as is normal at that age. But I really should have not dreamed that dream, because I am furniture. Furniture is nothing more than a tool, and is not human. For a person less than human such as myself, just receiving my education was more than sufficient happiness. So even thinking about love was more than I deserved. Oh, we're in the mansion. The Ushurmiya family conference was a customary event held every October, but relatives would occasionally visit at other times as well. Of course, they didn't come just to drink tea. On this day, Ava's family had visited the head family on Rokkenjima. So this is in the past, was what I'm getting. Maybe the events will happen just the same way, just from different characters' point of view. The three people from Cross's family and the three people from Ava's family had gathered in the parlor. They were having a friendly chat as they updated everyone on their situations. Genji had supposedly told Kinzo of Ava's family's arrival, but he hadn't come down yet. He was probably immersed in his own research and couldn't spare the time. This often happened, so the others waited patiently for their fickle father to come down.
Oh, それは頼もしいじゃないか。お父さんのところでたくさん勉強して、早く手助けができるよう頑張りたまえ。
I did not miss you, Cross. I'm sorry.
ありがとうございます。今は父の紹介でたくさんの人生の先輩方に本当に貴重な勉強をさせていただいています。そのいずれも学校では学べないことばかりです。
学校で習うのは国語算数やない。ものを学ぶ姿勢と態度を学ぶんや。その基礎ができて、ようやく生涯をかけた勉強が始まるんやで。ここをな、勘違いしとるやつは生涯学べん石頭や。国語算数で満点取れても会社じゃ役に立たへん。
全くその通りだよ。秀吉さんの教育方針はいつも本当にご立派ですな。
ジョージもまだまだ半人前や。それを常に忘れんで勉強に励むんやで。
よしなさいよあなた。ジョージはいっつも一生懸命頑張ってるわよ。
Oh, Ava, I missed you so much. I might have not missed Hideyoshi, but Ava, I missed you.
ねえ。本当に立派ね。
Natsuhi, I missed you as well.
うちのジェシカにも爪の赤を分けてもらいたいわ。
Even though you died on the last episode of the first episode, I guess, I still felt a little bit sad about your death. Though I was a little bit angry with you concerning Maria.
まだテストの結果を根に持ってるのかよ。受験勉強は私なりにやってるって。こんな席でまで言うことはねえだろうよ。うせえぜ。
When George was praised for his diligence, the conversation nearly always turned to Jessica, who hated studying. Jessica made an openly displeased face, as though she'd known she would come back to her.
やれやれ、ジェシカは勉強と一緒に少しはおしとやかな言葉遣いも学ぶ必要があるんじゃないか。
Yeah, I did not miss you, Cross.
後ろ宮家の家紋を背負う一人娘がそれではみっともないな。
あら、これはこれで魅力的よねえ。時代は変わるのよ。 男に食わしてもらうために定粛を装わなくてはならなかった時代はとっくに終わってるんだから。
そうそう、やっぱエヴァおばさんは分かってますね。
はあ、今日は頭痛が特にこたえます。
大丈夫ですか？夏日おばさん、顔色が優れないみたいです。
ありがとう。大丈夫です。
All of Natsuhi's sprites are amazing.
でも本当に月日が経つのは早いものね。半ズボン姿で浜辺を駆け巡ってずぶ濡れになって帰ってきた日がついこの間のように思います。
それはジェシカちゃんも同じよね。今じゃお化粧の仕方にだってこだわるレディーなんだから。眉にこだわりがあるのね。今日のあなたとってもキュートよ。
ありがとうございます。誰も気づいてくれなかったんで自信なくしてたとこです。
A full smile rose to Jessica's face as the results of her own studies were finally noticed. Eva smiled back just as widely. Then she turned to smile towards Natsuhi. Oh
ダメよ、
no.
夏日姉さん。
It had to come to this again. Yes, come on, fight.
自分のこの小さな変化にも気づかなくちゃ。かわいそうなジェシカちゃん。一番最初にお母さんに気づいてもらいたかったでしょうに。
Man, Eva doesn't relent at all. And I love that about her.
いいんです、いいんです。
I learned to love that about her, I guess.
あの人、そういうの全然気づかない人なんで。
ジェシカ、母親をあの人呼ばわりとは感心できんね。
Man, your mother tried her best to protect you last episode. She even sacrificed everyone so you could remain safe. Every servant was thrown out the window. Even Maria was thrown out just so she could keep you safe.
謝りなさい。
言葉遣いについては後でよく言って聞かせます。
Let me say this. Ava would throw Jessica in the trash at the first notice. Ava doesn't care about you, Jessica. She's just looking for opportunities to bully Natsuhi.
ちぇ、お子様は邪魔だってんならそう言ってくれよ。私は席を外させてもらうぜ。ここは空気がよどんでるぜ。
ジェシカ。
Jessica was still at an unpredictable age with exams right around the corner. Recently, she had clashed often with her mother, who was enthusiastic about her education.
失礼いたします。
Oh no, Shannon. There's two people here who hate you. Jessica, making to leave the parlor in a bad mood, and Shannon, pushing a serving cart loaded with tea, bumped into each other.
ああ、シャノン。私の分のお茶はいらないぜ。私は庭でもほっつき歩いてくる。
お嬢様？
シャノン、お茶が冷めます。
Oh, see?
配膳を急ぎなさい。
失礼しました。
Natsuhi doesn't like Shannon at all. Oh, the clock again. Shannon hadn't actually done anything wrong. Natsuhi, who felt like some shame to herself had been shown, lashed out at her emotionally. This was something that often happened in the Ushinomiya family. Yeah, Natsuhi doesn't like the servants at all. You could see it last episode, she sacrificed all of them. But it seemed that Shannon wasn't strong-willed enough to accept it that way. She shrunk back and nervously prepared the black tea. She had the unfortunate habit of making more mistakes when she felt intimidated. Her pitiful appearance dispersed the peaceful atmosphere that had been there just a moment ago. That wasn't really Shannon's fault, but she thought she might be the source and felt a pressure on her chest. Her shaking fingers made the porcelain clatter, and you couldn't have called it graceful, not even as an empty compliment. The more pitiful everyone thought it was, the greater the silence grew. The more irritated Natsuhi looked, and the more Shannon cowered. Shannon's thin neck felt like it was being choked and suffocated by the deaf god called tension. Then George spoke cheerfully, as if to blow away the stiff atmosphere.
これはいい香りだね。何の紅茶かな？
これは。
She's not going to know.
言わないで。当てるから。これは特徴的な匂いだから多分わかるよ。アールグレイかな。
Wrong.
多分そうだと思います。
多分アールグレイで合ってるよ。台所に戻ったら紅茶の缶を見てごらん。
ほう、ジョージ君は紅茶に詳しいのかね。
お世話になっている社長さんに紅茶の詳しい人がいまして、講釈を聞いているうちに少しだけわかるようになりました。
ああ、おこのぎ食品の社長さんかい。
What the fuck? I know that name. Okonogi. Isn't he the leader of the mountain dogs?
あの人、そういううんちくは得意やな。
He isn't he?
紅茶の名前って産地を示すことが多いんでしょ？
So he left the army to become a tea president. What president is he? Okonogi Foods.
じゃあこれはアールグレイという土地で栽培されたのが由来なのかしらね。
昔イギリスにグレイ伯爵という人がいたそうで、その人にちなんでつけた名前だそうだよ。ちなみにこの特徴的な匂いは茶葉のものではなくて、ベルガモットというみかんの親戚にあたる果物でつけたものなんだって。
そうなの。初めて知りました。そういう知識を持っていると紅茶もより美味しくいただけますね。
酒もタバコも同じや。嗜好品はロマンをたしなむもんやで。こういううんちくが味わいを深めるんや。
薬の能書きと同じよね。夏日姉さんも愛用してる頭痛薬の説明書、今度はじっくり読んでから飲んでみなさいよ。
She doesn't relent one bit. Ava, what the hell?
それはいい。今夜試してみなさい。
And Cross always.
試してみます。
Cross always throws his wife under the bus. Come on, man.
シャノンちゃん、そのポットを開けてごらん。茶葉の中にベルガモットを乾燥させたものが混じっているのを見つけられるはずだよ。
And then she doesn't find it, and George is all wrong. That'll be funny.
はい、入っています。
Oh, okay.
オレンジの皮を乾燥させたようなものが混じっています。
多分これがベルガモットだね。アールグレイの香りの主成分だよ。匂いは鮮烈だから味がきつそうな印象があるけど、素直で飲みやすい味なんだよ。ミルクティーにすると香りもまろやかになって素敵かもしれないね。みんなに注いでポットに余った分があったら、ぜひミルクティーにして飲んでみるといいよ。
はい、ありがとうございます。
George gave her a small wink. Shannon finally realized that George had been doing her a favor by calming down the atmosphere in the room, and he had been doing it for her sake as she lost her self-confidence. Yushomiya family did not pamper their servants, so if there was any awkwardness, they could be harshly punished. So it didn't often happen that they were given a small helping hand like this. Thanks to George's concern, Shannon was somehow able to get a hold of herself and finish serving everything safely. If she was calm when she worked, she could easily carry out her tasks elegantly and flawlessly. By the time the black tea was laid out on the table and the elegant scent drifted around, the room was completely black to how it had been, in a peaceful mood as everyone praised George's knowledge. Shannon wanted to thank him for saving her, but it didn't look like she would get the chance. So she at least thanked him inside her heart, praying to God that George would hear it and push the servant cart away.
ジョージ兄さんは昔からそういう時には助け舟を出してくれるんだよ。話題をさらりと変えてくれるというかさ。
Shannon and Jessica could be seen in the rose garden. Jessica, having gotten into a fight with her mother, now felt unable to simply nonchalantly wander back into the parlor and found herself here, killing time.
思い返せば、こういう助けられ方をしたのは今回が初めてじゃない気がします。
Whenever I made a careless mistake and George-sama was there, he would always naturally smooth things over and make things harmonious, I think. Maybe it wasn't something as direct as picking up a fork that had been dropped. So right now we're in Shannon's headspace. That was his way of caring. Even servants have pride. They want to fix their own mistakes by themselves. Because if a guest helped them out with that, they would lose face.
そういう空気を読むのが得意なんだろうぜ。ま、ジョージ兄さんの美学なんだろうよ。あの人、妙に気ざったらしいところあるからな。
そんなことありません。とっても素敵な方だと思います。
So that's why Kanon felt bad when Battler helped him last episode.
ひょっとしてシャノン、ジョージ兄さんに惚れた
？Shannon had refuted Jessica's words uncharacteristically forcefully, so Jessica called on immediately.
いえ、そういうことはないかと。
そういや、ジョージ兄さんってあまり浮いた話を聞いたことないし。
So this is a flashback to the flashback.
あれ？確か家庭的な子がタイプだとか前に聞いたかな。そりゃいいぜ、シャノンぴったりじゃん。
私がですか？そんな、私にはそんな資格ありませんし。
資格はあるぜ。何年も昔から顔を合わせてて、半ば幼馴染状態。互いに男女であることを意識しないナチュラルな関係ってのは、一度意識し始めるとトントン拍子らしいぜ。
Jessica loved teen magazines with these kinds of stories, and she was always on the phone talking excitedly with her friends about that kind of thing. So she had a keen intuition for this kind of romantic topic. Romance in my mentioned murder mystery? I don't think so. But then again, I saw something strange in the opening. So, this wasn't the first time a topic like this had been brought to Shannon. But it was certainly the first time she had noticed George as a member of the opposite sex. She was furniture, and George was an honored guest connected to the Ushramia family. She had thought it impermissible to even imagine any deeper relationship. So she hadn't thought about it. Jessica was taking immense pleasure in poking fun at all of this, since it didn't affect her. Shannon was doing her best to make sure her blushing cheeks weren't discovered. So if George showed up at a time like this, there would be no way that she would be able to keep her cool. They saw George come out of the entrance hall of the mansion. It looked like he had seen them as well. He headed over, waving his hand. Shannon had to frantically try to regain her ordinary composure before George reached them.
おじいさまがやっと降りてきたよ。あとは大人たちの話になるからって追い出されてね。
そりゃ抜け出して正解だよ。じいさまの顔を拝むくらいなら疫病神にキスした方がマシだぜ。
そんな言い方は悪いよ。ただおじいさまは僕らのことを疫病神だと思っているかもしれないね。何しろ事業用にお金を借りたいという話でやってきたんだから。
That's right. This was the customary annual October family conference. Ava's family had visited to apply for a business loan from the main family. Kinzo had vast resources, and he lent those out to his children. Of course, it was not money to lend because they had gotten themselves into financial trouble. How would they expand their business using the vast amount of money that they had borrowed? How much interest would be attached, and how soon it could be repaid? This wasn't a loan for the have-nots. This was a loan for those who were on the offense. Kinzo judged strictly whether it was worth lending out his fortune, and afterwards he strictly oversaw its use. So, there was occasionally this spectacle where relatives visit Rokkenjima and explain their business to Kinzo. The parents may as well be in meeting concerning the movements of a large sums of money, forcing immense stress upon them. But to Jessica, who lived on this isolated island called Rokkenjima, it was a precious opportunity to meet up with her cousins. So even her bad mood from getting into that fight with her mother was immediately cured by this chat with the infrequent visitor George.
うちも全くケチくせえぜ。金なんて余ってるんだろうから、気前よく貸してやりゃいいのによ。うちの親父もじいさまも、どうせねちっこくもったいぶってんだろうぜ。
お金を貸すとき、慎重になるのは当然のことだよ。もちろんうちの父さんも、借り入れた分で事業を拡大し、しっかり返却できるプランを持って訪れてる。あとは、プレゼンテーション次第ってところだろうね。本当は、脇で見させてもらって勉強したいんだけど、母さんに追い出されちゃったんだよ。ちょっと残念かな。
親方様は、クラウス様やエヴァ様のことを今でも子供の頃と全く変わらないように叱られるようです。そんな姿を息子のジョージ様にきっと見せたくないのでしょう。
Shannon hung her head. She thought back on those scenes she had grown used to while working on the mansion. Even Cross, who acted haughtily towards his siblings, was still treated like a child by Kinzo. Shannon herself had often seen Kinzo slapping Cross or making him sit in a Seiza style. It was probably deeply humiliating to have been forced upon him at his age. In the Urashirimiya family, taking care not to be present when this happened was one of the greatest tasks of the servants. Of course, that didn't mean that Shannon had been making mistakes by being witness to it.
そうだろうね。それを察して姿を消すのも子供の務めかな。それにしても今年もこの庭園の花は本当に素敵だね。
George stretched out as he said that, and truly effortlessly he changed the subject away from something that had become a little gloomy. This time Shannon noticed it too. This person, George, was highly sensitive to the mood of a group and was always caring enough to change the subject to something more harmonious. Had been so smooth that Shannon didn't have noticed it until today. Today, Shannon had to admire that behavior of George's. Almost all the boys Shannon knew of her own age were her classmates during her education. They were all immature, and none of them had the composure that George did. Even though he had been just another guest until moments ago. Now, she couldn't describe him with just that. But that was idle thinking, irrelevant to her work as a servant. Shannon tried to chase it away with her small shake of her head.
どうしたんだよ。
いえ、何でもありません。お茶のご用意をしましょうか。先ほどのアールグレイを改めてご用意します。
紅茶の名前覚えてくれたんだね。嬉しいよ。
さっきはお気遣いをありがとうございました。
Shannon was finally able to put her thanks into words. She wrote them out on paper. They wouldn't seem like much, but Shannon had needed just a little courage to say them out loud. But George played dumb.
何のことだい？お礼を言われるような覚えはないけど。
It seemed he was being a gentleman in his own way, saying that he hadn't helped her because he wanted to be thanked. It seemed that George's response had been more or less predictable to Jessica. She burst out laughing uncontrollably.
なあ、こういうところ気ざったらしいだろ。いえ、そんなことは。
Jessica made fun of Shannon as she remained silent, red-faced. George didn't know about the details, but he naturally joined in, laughing at the same way. The three of them lazily walked around the garden, thinking about what was new. George, as the oldest cousin, kept talking about his life experiences. Jessica talked about her recent life on Rokkenjima, and Shannon talked about her recent work. These silly little topics went round and round in circles. Even when the others' stories had been fascinating, Shannon had never felt particularly connected with their contents. She was nothing more than a servant, and she had no intention of delving into her master's lives. She simply wanted them to enjoy their time speaking with her. I was only pretending to listen intently and nodding at the right moments. But for some reason, she found talking with George deeply interesting today. Even for things that she would normally ignore, she felt like she could feel a kindness hidden beneath the words. For some reason, she wanted to know more things about George, no matter how trivial. So she stared fixedly at him. She thought that as far as looks went, this person, Ushirami George, was probably about average, and he didn't really stick out. But he was diligent, serious, and deeply thoughtful in a way that allowed him to understand people's hearts and care for them. But she had never been aware of these things until now. She might have met him many times, but she had known his face for many years. Even so, she had not noticed once until now. So Shannon felt ashamed of this, and her cheeks went red. Maybe George thought that Shannon was appreciating him talking about himself because he continued to relate his personal stories. Jessica didn't miss that slight change in Shannon. So she turned the discussion around the topic Shannon wanted to hear about most.
そういやさ、ジョージ兄さん、いい加減に彼女とかはできたわけ？
なんだい、やぶから棒に。
Normally, just George's reaction would have been answer enough. For some reason, as she was now, Shannon found herself unable to understand it unless he said it clearly.
そのジョージ様はお優しいですから、さぞや表になるだろうと。
Oh, she's twisting the knife on the wound.
いや、
よせよシャノン、そういう追い詰め方はかえって意地悪だぜ。
私は別に意地悪のつもりは。
嬉しい勘違いをありがとう。残念だけど特定の一人の女性とはまだご縁がないよ。見ての通り容姿も並以下だからね。女の子を楽しくさせてあげられるような気の利いた話術もないし。
そんなことないと思います。それに男性の魅力は容姿では測れないところで決まるんじゃないかと思います。だからジョージ様はとても魅力的な男性じゃないかと思います。
Shannon was uncharacteristically verbose. Compared to her normal self, she was being very wordy indeed. Georgian looked fairly pleased about hearing his own charm described, but he was just as surprised at this high praise. Jessica, sure now that her own imagination was right on, acted as though she could barely hold back her laughter.
ありがとう、シャノンちゃん。僕に魅力を感じてくれるような寛大な女性に早く巡り合いたいね。
So basically, George is different from Battler in that Battler is insanely attractive and charismatic, and he's just normal.
きっと巡り会えると思います。ジョージ様の本当の魅力に気づいている女性はきっと大勢いらっしゃると思いますよ。
She probably want to say there's a girl not very far away. She avoided saying that much, drawing a final line as a servant.
そうかな。さすがに照れるね。
Maybe he had never been praised this much by a girl. George's face turned as bright red as Shannon's. As she watched the two of them, Jessica giggled sadistically.
ジョージ兄さんもやがては素敵なパートナーと出会うだろうけどさ、今のままじゃきっと上手にパートナーをエスコートできないと思うぜ。勤勉でいらっしゃるようだけど、そっちのお勉強はからっきしみたいですよ。
悪かったね。その勉強はこれから少しずつしていくよ。
Yeah, the difference between Battler is that when Ava asked that, oh, your looks must draw a lot of girls, and she, nah, I don't know what you mean, I don't know. And George is all embarrassed saying that, no, there's no one.
相手もいないのにどうやって？恋愛映画でも見る？それとも秀吉おじさんに習う？
まるで鬼の首でも取ったみたいだな。
When we were first introduced to George and Battler, I thought that George was kind of jealous of Battler. So I guess we'll be seeing that if we get a little bit more of characterization from George.
こういう話では男は女の子にかなわないね。
Normally, when George and Jessica got together, their parents would say George is diligent and admirable, and Jessica is lazy and rude. That was probably irresistibly fun for Jessica when their roles were finally reversed. George also realized that, so this time he was content on being the one who was teased.
ジョージ兄さんさえいいならさ、シャノンでちょっと練習してみたら？シャノンを一日退屈させずにデートに連れてくんだよ。どうよ？
そんなお嬢様。
When she heard Jessica's audacious plans, Shannon's face turned bright red. A donut of smoke rose from it with a poof.
それはとても魅力的な提案だけど、シャノちゃんに悪いよ。彼女の貴重な休日を奪うだけじゃない。彼女が本当に思いを寄せる人と二人きりで過ごす聖域に僕が割り込んでしまうことになる。そんな無粋なことはできないね。
私もその思い人とかそういう人はいませんので、そういうお気遣いは無用なのです。
Shannon's blood had all rushed to her head. It looked like even she didn't know what she was babbling about. Jessica, who knew how Shannon normally was, seemed to find that really comical. She couldn't hide her cackling laugh anymore.
そうなのかい？シャノンちゃんみたいな可愛い子が独り身なんて信じられないね。
私使用人ですから、その男の方との縁なんてありませんし、
ってことはシャノンも将来素敵な男性を射止めるために交際の練習が必要だってことじゃないのかよ。つまり二人とも互いの思惑は一致するわけだ。なるほど、こりゃいいぜ。
Jessica irresponsibly cheered the two of them on. Now George was also hanging his head, red-faced.
ジョージ、さっきから呼んでるわよ。
Oh man, come on Ava, just fucking slam both George and Jessica and Shannon as well. Come on, I need you to destroy them.
聞こえないの？
Since Ava appeared in what was already an embarrassing situation, both of them became even more flustered. Jessica was in stitches.
母さん、ごめんよ、話が込み入っちゃっててね、気づかなかった。
これはエヴァ様、大変失礼しました。
若い子たち同士で大層盛り上がってたみたいね。
Oh, Ava is going to destroy Shannon.
あなたたちもみんなお年頃だもの。そういう話題が尽きないのもよくわかるわ。
嫌ですね。エヴァおばさんだってまだまだお若いじゃないですか。秀吉おじさんとの馴れ初めを聞かせてくださいよ。
あら、そんなの言えるわけないわよ。本当にみんな若いんだから。
それで何母さん、用があって声をかけたんじゃないの？
お父さんたちの話が終わったわ。おじいさまにあなたの話をするからいらっしゃい。
僕の話？何の話かな？
今みんなでしてたのと同じ話よ。ほら、例の話。
あの話かい。別におじいさまに話すようなことじゃないんじゃないかな。
何の話だよ。まさかジョージ兄さん誰かと結婚するの？
それはおめでとうございます。
違うよ特定の女性はいないってさっき言ったじゃないか。
威張ることじゃないでしょ。まったく。
Eva smiled bitterly, looking a little exasperated.
わかった。ジョージ兄さんあれでしょ。お見合いだ。
お見合いですか？
まあね。
As a man, George undoubtedly wanted to find a partner by himself and carry her off himself. It seemed that he found out the idea of meeting his partner for the first time in a marriage meeting arranged by his parents to be a little pathetic.
お見合いというのはもっと年齢が成熟してからするものじゃないのかな。僕はまだ一人前になったって自覚すらないというのに。
もちろん即結納即結婚なんて焦る気は全然ないのよ。親睦を深めて年齢的にもう少し落ち着いてから籍を入れる形でも問題ないの。
From the forceful impression Eva was giving and George's evasiveness, it seemed like you could catch a glimpse of how this marriage meeting linked into everything. Who this other person was remained unclear, but it was surely someone profitable to Eva's family in a business sense. It felt almost like a political strategy. They want to create a connection between the two families, not by changing registers, then at least by having them engaged.
結婚はね、好きになってからするものじゃないの。
Oh man.
してから慣れることよ。感情だけで結婚すると必ず後悔する。身元のしっかりした人を生涯の伴侶に選んで、それから愛情を築いていくのも決して間違ったことではないの。
Eva has much of it backwards, but I guess it's because she's rich, right? So she views marriage as something to be gained, something to profit off.
エヴァおばさん、それじゃ秀吉おじさんに悪いですよ。
私はあの人のこと大好きよ。いつまでも一緒にいて人生を共にしていきたい。
エヴァ様、素晴らしいです。本当にご立派です。
ありがとう。でもその気持ちは二人で夫婦をしていくうちに育んだものよ。そして今の私たちより未来の私たちの方がもっともっと仲良しだと信じてる。私は夫婦はそういうものがいいと思ってるの。
It's because it worked for you, Eva.
だからって好きでもない相手と結婚してもいいって論法にはならないと思うけどな。
だからって好きな相手なら誰と結婚してもいいという論法にはならないわ。
Here it comes, Eva.
結婚は一瞬。でもその後の夫婦生活はずっとずっと長いの。だから一時の感情に任せず慎重に相手を探すべきなの。そしてそれは人生経験の未熟なあなたよりお母さんたちの方がうまくやれるとは思わない？
それはそうかもしれないけど。
あなたは私の自慢の一人息子よ。どこへ出しても恥ずかしくないくらい立派に成長してくれたわ。バトラ君は籍を抜け、あなたが今やお父様の血を引く唯一の男孫。あなたにふさわしい相手は慎重に選ばなくてはならない。
As everyone related to the Ushirmiya family knew, Eva adored George so much that he was the apple of her eye. That didn't mean she had pampered him. She had raised him strictly, and he had grown into a charming man who wouldn't betray her expectations. That's how he was the apple of her eye.
あなたの相手は決して母さんたちの損得で決めてなんかいないわ。あなたにふさわしい本当に素晴らしい女性に母さんが合わせてあげる。今はあなたの中にある青臭い若さがそれを疎むかもしれない。でもこれだけは母さんの言うことを聞きなさい。私があなたのためを思わなかったことが一度でもある。
She's very helicopter mom.
それはないけど。
今はそれで結構よ。さあ行きましょう。お父様を待たせてるわよ。急いで屋敷に行きなさい。
じゃあごめんね二人とも。また後で。
George bowed to the two of them. After bowing once more to Shannon, he dashed off to the mansion.
じゃあおばさんも行くわね。楽しい話を打ち切っちゃってごめんねジェシカちゃん。シャノンちゃん。
いえ気にしないでください。
I'm just waiting for it. Oh.
じゃあシャノン。
I know. I know this person that Ava is. I know.
私たちは行こうぜ。
はい。
Just waiting for it. I'm just waiting.
大丈夫よ。ジェシカちゃんだってきっとそのうち素敵な出会いがあるわよ。ジェシカちゃんにふさわしい素敵な方がね。
私と同程度ってことは成績の悪い男かな。なんだかうぜえぜ
もちろんシャノンちゃんにもね。あなたにふさわしい素敵な男性がきっと現れるわよ。
Ooh, she's throwing shade. I knew it.
はい、ありがとうございます。
As Ava giggled and smiled, oh shit. I know who Ava is as a character. She approached Shannon's ear with her hand over her mouth, as though she was trying to tell her a secret. Oh shit. Fuck. Oh, here it comes. Shit.
使用人風情のあなたにぴったりの相手がきっと見つかるわよ。
I fucking knew it.
義務教育に行かせてもらった恩も忘れて身の程を知りなさい。
そんなつもりは私。
ジョージはお父様の血を引く孫の中では嫡男に当たるのよ。ひょっとしたら未来の後ろ宮家を背負うことになるかもしれない人。その期待に応えるためにたくさんの勉強を重ねて素晴らしい大学に入り素晴らしい成績を残しているわ。そんなジョージと無能無資格無教養な使用人風情が釣り合うと本気でお思い？
Those malicious words all poured into Shannon's ear without spilling a drop. To Shannon, it was like cold water being poured in there.
私はそんなつもりは。
This was all whispered in secret, and with the same smile as before. Jessica, who could only see Ava's expression, didn't think that it was anything other than Ava telling some embarrassing story about love. When their secret conversation ended, Ava patted Shannon's shoulders, as though to underscore her message.
大丈夫よ。あなたにぴったりのお相手がきっと見つかるから。
Ava, you know how to twist a knife.
ね。じゃあね、ジェシカちゃん。また後でね。はい、
また後で。
I need to hear that again.
大丈夫よ。あなたにぴったりのお相手がきっと見つかるから。ね。じゃあね、ジェシカちゃん。また後でね。
Ava is amazing. Can I just say that?
秀吉おじさんとの話、その時聞かせてくださいね。
いやよ。
Ava laughed dryly and headed back to the entrance hall. Behind Jessica was cheerfully waving her hand. Shannon reflected very deeply on those words of Ava's about knowing her place I felt deep remorse for my brief moment of conceit. I had forgotten I am furniture. Furniture isn't human. So I am a being who must feel gratitude for even being treated like a human, and I am not permitted to wish for anything more. Even if people develop an affection for furniture that they are used to using, that is an emotion of the human's side, and the furniture had no right to hope for that. They should just serve with simple honesty every day. That feeling I felt when talking with George-sama and Jessica-sama is a forbidden drug to me. In other words, it may have been an emotion I must not know.
Shannon?
Oh shit, here it comes.
先ほどからぼんやりが過ぎます。
Clock.
体調でも悪いのですか？
いえ。
Eva is more sadistic. Natsuhi is more utilitarian, and she doesn't like the servants.
失礼いたしました。
Natsuhi's words, too distracted, were right on the mark. Even Shannon couldn't believe that she hadn't noticed Natsuhi until she had been called. This was supposed to be the time where she had concentrated on cleaning. But she had just kept sighing and hadn't accomplished anything.
たとえお客様がおられなくても、常に気を張っていなくてはなりません。そんな様では、後宮家に仕える使用人として、情けありませんよ。
はい、以後注意します。
もうじき、当主様と主人がお帰りになられます。書斎の清掃は済んでいますか？階段の清掃は済んでいますか？
申し訳ございません。
This is trying to make me feel bad for Shannon, but I'm just liking Eva and Natsuhi more for some reason.
まだです。
ええ、知っています。
It's because I really don't like Shannon's archetype or trope.
ですから、ルノンにやらせておきました。
Oh, Lunon, another servant of the Gospel House.
あなたがもたもたと廊下を清掃している時間で、彼女は書斎と階段の清掃を済ませてしまいましたよ。
So we'll see this Lunon later on.
それは、丁寧にお掃除をしていたから、時間がかかってしまって。
It will be fun to see if the servants shift. Maybe you'll get to see other people when shit happens. Shannon was simple and honest, so she will always carry out her tasks seriously and properly, without any omissions. So she was always slow with her work. In contrast, Lunon skillfully cut corners whenever they should be cut, so she could complete her jobs with a result that looked like similar to an outsider, but in a much shorter time. In other words, she was shrewd. Compared to her, I should say that Shannon, who would just talk back to Natsuhi when she was already in a bad mood, was not shrewd in the slightest. Of course, there was nothing that Natsuhi couldn't stand more than a servant talking back. Her forehead creased and she spoke sternly. And yet her speech was slow and admonishing, which was terrifying beyond measure, and finally made Shannon realize that she said the wrong thing.
ならば、存分に丁寧な清掃を心がけなさい。
Thunder is when Beatrice is present, or when shit goes wrong.
シャノン、あなたにこのまま大広間の清掃も命じます。当主様の大切な絵画が多数飾られ、後宮家への賓客をお招きすることもある。誇り一つ残さないよう、あなたが納得するまで丁寧に清掃なさい。ならば、存分に丁寧な清掃を心がけなさい。シャノン、あなたにこのまま大広間の清掃も命じます。当主様の大切な絵画が多数飾られ、後宮家への賓客をお招きすることもある大切な広間です。
Actually, I retract my statements. Natsuhi isn't completely utilitarian. She feigns to be utilitarian, but is quite emotional deep inside. So she gets mad pretty easily and tries to shroud it in a utilitarian personality. but she isn't really one.
もちろん今日中にです。それを終えて私に報告するまで、食事も休憩も許しません。わかりましたね。
はい、奥様。
結構。使用人はその言葉だけを口にするように。次の口答えには、より厳しい罰を与えますから、そのつもりで、よく胸に刻んでおきなさい。
はい、奥様。ご指導をありがとうございます。
どういたしまして。
Natsuhi headed off down the corridor, making a gesture as if her headache was troubling her. When Shannon couldn't see her anymore, she hung her head and sighed. This happened because I let my thoughts take me. I might be bad at everything I do, but I should at least be able to carry out the cleaning as well as an average person can, right? I can't even do that properly, so pathetic it makes me want to cry. And there's something even more pathetic. Not only was I unable to perform a single bit of cleaning well, but just now, when Natsuhi was scolding me, I was envisioning him appearing and rescuing me. If only George-sama had been here. Perhaps he would be able to casually step in and save me. I'm sure he would show up cheerfully, intentionally acting like he doesn't know what's going on, namely changing the subject and make me forget I was ever reprimanded by Natsuhi. I kept envisioning him, suddenly appearing from the other side of the door, or the other end of the hallway. And envisioned the kind of person that would be an appropriate partner for him in a marriage meeting, and envisioned how unfitting I am for him. Ava had told me that clearly. It had repeated endlessly through my dreams.
姉さんは相変わらず不器用だね。奥様は今朝から虫の居所が悪い。黙ってうなずいていればいいものを。
カノン君。
姉さんは相変わらず不器用だね。奥様は今朝から虫の居所が悪い。黙ってうなずいていればいいものを。余計なことを言うから。
I want more Kanon screen time. Kanon was suddenly there. His footsteps were always quieter than a cat's, and he left no trace of his presence. She probably wouldn't have noticed him, no matter how long he stood there. The expression on Kanon's face was hatred. The expression he was making, he was surely made it for Shannon, who didn't know how to do so herself.
奥様も、そしてルノンも地獄へ落ちろ。あいつは奥様がどこをチェックするか知ってて、そこしか掃除しない。さっきの掃除もそうだった。見ていたから知ってる。本当の意味での掃除なんかしてないんだよ。丁寧に掃除する姉さんに寄生してるだけの最低なやつだ。
そんな汚い言葉を使ってはダメよ。汚い言葉はカノン君の綺麗な魂まで怪我してしまう。だからせめて私の前ではそんな言葉遣いをしないでね。
No. Kanon faced away, acting sulky. It was a dishonest reaction, very like Kanon-kun, but I was a little happy. He got angry in my place.
大広間の掃除は大変だよ。僕も手伝う。
ありがとう。でも、奥様に命じられたのは私だから大丈夫。カノン君にも自分のお仕事があるんでしょ？
汚らわしい仕事だよ。僕の魂なんて、とっくに汚れてる。
Kanon then hung his head and bit his lower lip.
手伝ってくれるという言葉だけで、私は十分。カノン君も自分の仕事に戻らないと、あなたまで罰を受けることになっちゃう。そしたら、私は悲しい。
Shannon knew Kanon's character well. Sometimes he didn't reflect on it himself. If I don't refuse forcefully, he will help me even if it means neglecting his own job. Kanon was a little sad that his favor had been rejected, but he realized that in the end, going too far will also cause her pain, and he gave a single small sigh.
わかったよ。姉さんも頑張って。
うん。それに、私にも責任はあるから。
姉さんには責任なんて何もないよ。
あるの。だから、 もう言って。
Kanon-kun's face showed that he still hadn't completely accepted it, but he stopped being persistent and disappeared. Even though Kanon-kun had given me the words of comfort when I was down, even so, I was still dejected because it hadn't been him. I was simply a sin. Far beyond any dream the likes of me could be permitted to see, know your place. Shannon, who had neglected breakfast, was already starting to feel her thoughts attenuate. But if she didn't finish cleaning the reception hall, she couldn't receive Natsuhi's permission to eat. That cruel Natsuhi had surely told the kitchen of that. I had to respectfully receive Madame's punishment. That's right. My position in the world is furniture, and I have been intoxicated by a dream that is beyond me. I finished cleaning the hallway and went to the reception hall. Maybe hunger makes a nose more sensitive. The kitchen was far away, but somehow I could smell the delicious aroma wafting from there, stimulating my empty stomach all the more. Till I finished up here, I could not get up any soup. I just had to prepare myself. Several portraits were hung in the reception hall. One of those portraits was thought amongst the servants to hold a special meaning. It's Beatrice. It was a portrait of the witch. It wasn't its true name, but everyone in the mansion called it that. The name of the name of the woman with elegant blonde hair, drawn as the subject of the portrait, was Beatrice. It was whispered that she might have been the former mistress of the family head Kinzo, and also that she was a great witch who had given Kinzo his legendary gold. Thunder means Beatrice. The witch, Beatrice, master of the night on Rokkenjima, she was gracious to hold those who respected her, but she would always curse those who made light of her. It was in Shannon's character not to neglect the rules and beliefs such as those. So she thought of the portrait of her other master as that person herself, and always treated it carefully, treasuring it. It had become part of her daily routine to talk inside her own head to the witch who only existed inside of the portrait. She was furniture. Furniture doesn't complain, cannot complain. So she had no right to speak her mind about her difficult days. No right to open her mouth and say those words. So she at least spoke her mind inside her heart. Those words she couldn't say aloud. She spoke inside her heart and protested to the formless witch. Of course, the witch didn't answer. She never consoled, and she never laughed it off. Shannon could only interpret the silence as she liked, as though the witch was at least listening attentively.
Beatrice 様、みすぼらしい私の話を聞いてください。
As Shannon wiped the dust from the witch's portrait, she spoke inside her heart.
私は確かにエヴァ様の言う通り、無能で無教養な家具です。人じゃない。だから恋をする資格などないかもしれません。でも、だったらどうして恋を知ることのできる心などお与えになったのでしょうか。
Shannon paused there and held back her tears for a time. The sound of the rain, which started falling along the chill air in the reception hall, made her feel as though her shabbiness had increased another level.
本当の家具なら心なんかない。だから人を愛したりしなくて済むじゃないですか。だから苦しまない。私も同じ家具なのに、どうして心なんかあるんですか。こんな苦しくて辛い思いをするなら、こんな心なんて。
なるほど。
こんな苦しくて辛い思いをするなら、 な心なんて、与えないで欲しかった。
Oh, here comes Beatrice.
家具に心を与えたか。あれも時には愉快なことをする。
She has a good voice actress. Really, really great. Witch who never answered or laughed, answered and laughed. My imagination? Hearing things? No. After all, the next words became a voice, and I could hear them, not with my heart, but with my ears.
人間は世界を構成する元素について紀元前の昔から探求を続けてきた。古代ギリシャ人たちは風、火、水、土の4つで世界の説明を試みたという。その後も数千年かけて人間たちはその4つに様々な元素を加え、5代、6代、7代、8代、12代と様々な解釈で世界を説明しようとしたが、唯一の真実である一なる元素を説明することはできなかった。
So this is before Shannon destroyed the shrine, right? So basically, Beatrice manipulated Shannon, maybe? Yeah, I think that's it.
しかし、星の導きによって現れた一人の男が、
So Shannon is one of the accomplices.
ついにこの世界を構成する一なる元素を説明した。何かわかるか？
She was betrayed. Oh shit. Shannon fearfully turned around. Oh shit. Right there, she existed. Not as an illusion, in reality. The contrast made by the lightnings made it clear that this was not just a daydream.
それは愛よ。
The witch of the portrait elegantly held the golden pipe to her mouth and giggled. She laughed at the ignorance which caused mankind's thoughts to stray far from the most simple answer.
その男は世界のすべてを愛で説明した。それこそが一なる元素。男は最小の数で世界の構成を説明しきったのだ。
So we're seeing how Beatrice is going to manipulate Shannon.
なんとも単純明快にして豪快爽快愉快痛快。
Beatrice has a fang. She's so cute. Her design is so good.
やがてその男の生まれた年は西暦紀元と呼ばれるようになったがな。
The voice actress is amazing as well. Shannon lost any words to speak. She thought that when first meeting an unknown guest, her first words should ask that person's name. But without saying anything, Shannon knew this person's name, so she refrained. No, surely as a person of this island, asking this person for her name would be the greatest disrespect. Because she was the other master of this island, in addition to Kinzo.
いかにもわらわがベアトリーチェである。千年を経ても人がわらわを見て最初に浮かべる表情は変わらんな。
She loves cackling. The witch giggled at how Shannon's reaction didn't betray her expectations. Shannon realized that she had met with a being that mustn't be met with, and she took a step backwards. That's where the hall and the portraits were, so even as she gazed at the witch, she supported the witch's portrait on her back.
お前の悩みは愛ゆえよ。それはすなわち世界の一なる元素。
I love her smug face.
つまり
この世のすべてだ。それが満たされぬということは世界が満たされぬに同じこと。それは穴の開いた水筒に水を汲み続けるのに似ている。汲めども汲めども満たされぬ永遠の心の砂漠。
Yeah, I love her smug face.
人間の基礎にして全てにして現在。わかるか？知識の実を口にしたアダムとイブが知ったのは愛だったのだ。それを知ったがゆえに人は楽園を追われ人足り得たのだ。すなわちそれは愛を知り苦しむからこそ人であること。心優しき娘よ、そなたは誇っていい。それを知った今、そなたはもはや家具にあらず、そなたは今こそ人間なのだ。我が名にかけてそれを認めようぞ。凡庸の身には理解もつらき話か。まあよいわ。許すがいい。久しぶりに人間と話すのでな。饒舌が過ぎたことを謝ろう。
Without expecting a reply from Shannon, Beatrice laughed pleasantly for a while. Okay, I'm kind of getting what Beatrice's archetype is. She's basically like Kiss Shot from Monogatari, Shinobu. She's basically that 1,000-year-old, 400-year-old domineering woman who knows everything, basically.
詫びと言ってはなんだが、わらわの力でそなたのその願望を叶えてやってもよいぞ。
The meaning of those words surprised Shannon even more than the witch's sudden appearance.
そなたを思い人と添い遂げさせてやってもよいと言っている。
That's when things go wrong.
本来ならばそれに見合うだけの対価を要求するところだがわらわは機嫌が良い。それにそなたはわらわへの礼を欠かさず今日までよく尽くした。
Beatrice, are you blushing?
それへの褒美としてやってもよい。
本当ですか？
Normally, Shannon would have been shocked by this guest who lacked realism and wouldn't be able to speak. However, as though she already been caught in the witch's trap, Shannon responded to the witch.
わらわの魔法にかかれば思い人と結ばれるように取り計らうなど造作もない。
You do mean it, don't you? Those words almost escaped Shannon's lips, but she held herself back with her final reserves of reason. A witch is a witch, a sinister being. The witch Beatrice is clearly trying to slip in through the cracks of my heart and take me prisoner. A sort of temptation which so many fairy tale picture books had warned me about when I was young was right in front of me now.
イフもまた敬いの一つよ。
So basically, Beatrice is offering a monkey's paw to
心地よくはあるが、これでは拉致が開かぬな。わらわは確かにそなたらが意味嫌う魔女像から離れはせぬ。だがわらわは敬う者には好意を返す。それは人間も同じであろう。そのように身構えられて好意を返せる人間もまたおらぬと思うがな。
失礼しました。そんなつもりは。
Shannon had finally realized that her hostility was rude to this guest, and she finally digested the words that had been spoken to her a short while ago. You are no longer furniture. Now you are human. The more she reflected upon those words, the more Shannon felt that those Beatrice could understand all her suffering.
さっきの その褒美の話って何ですか？
お前がその心を虜にする男と結ばれるように取り計らってもいいと言っている。
Here comes the monkey's paw.
わらわの肖像画を日々丹念に磨いてくれたことへの礼とでも思うがよい。
What happens if Battler tries to kick the portrait?
安心せよ。対価は求めぬ。
I'm kind of iffy on this.
わらわは気前がよい。
She's going to manipulate you into breaking the shrine.
だがな。対価は求めぬが頼みがある。
Look, here it comes. The other Shannon inside her heart sent her a warning. This is what she had been so often warned of. All those scary picture books she had read when she was little.
この島のすぐ近くの海に岩が覗き、そこに小さな鳥居と祠が設けてあるのを知っているか？
Shannon immediately remembered it. When he reached Rokkenjima by boat, there was a torii and a shrine on a reef, which was too small to even be called an inlet. She had the feeling that Kumasawa had told her its history, but she couldn't remember that very well. A traveling mountaineering ascetic or someone had built it, or prayed at it, or something.
知っていますが、それが何か。
魔に通じぬものに一から説明はせぬ。早い話がだな。あれには参っておるのだ。実はな、あの祠の中にある鏡が収められている。それをそなたに割ってほしいというのだ。
That was a very suspicious request. Shannon didn't know its history, but anything that might be stored inside a shrine would have to be something sacred. She wants me to break it? Or would something as powerful as a witch being able to do that herself and be asking a human for help? There was no need for Shannon to speak her thoughts aloud. Beatrice started talking about this reasonable question before Shannon could even give her answer.
あの鏡の魔力はわらわの魔力と相対する。人の言葉でうまく説明できぬな。例えれば食器の違いとでも言おうか。あの鏡はフォークで、わらわの力はスープなのだ。フォークでスープは飲めまい？あの鏡の押し付けさえなければ、わらわはスープを飲むのにぴったりのスプーンが用意できるというわけだ。それさえあれば、スープも飲めるし、岩ろうだって掘り抜けるぞ。
Break free. So she's not speaking to Beatrice, but she's speaking to the culprit. So right now, who are in the mansion right now? Shannon, Kanon, Landon, or something like that. Cross, Ava, Natsuhi, Hideyoshi, George, Jessica. So Kinzo and the other servants. So one of them is dressed as Beatrice and speaking to... If we go by explaining with humanity, I guess.
目玉だってえぐり貫ける。だったか?
She's speaking about BERNKASTEL's words to Battler right now.
何の話か分かりません。私の無教養のせいだとしたら謝ります。
こういうことだ。あの忌々しい鏡をわらわのために割る手間をかけてくれたなら、その褒美としてそなたの願いを叶えてやるということだ。
Does Beatrice hear BERNKASTEL speaking to Battler, maybe?
今日のわらわは本当に機嫌がいい。
I don't know if BERNKASTEL was speaking to Battler or speaking to us directly, but I think Beatrice heard it.
そなたが望むなら願い事を変えて金蔵に授けた黄金を丸ごとくれてやることにしてもよいぞ。
Wow.
お断りします。
なんと。
お断りします。
Oh, she heard Shannon's words. Beatrice realized for the first time that her expectations had been betrayed.
理由があれば聞かせよ。誤解があるなら解こうぞ。
理由なんてよくわかりません。でも今日までこの島は平和で何も起こりませんでした。なら鏡を割らなくても今日までと同じ平和がこれからも続いていくはずです。
なるほどなるほど。それはもっともだな。そなたの言う通りだ。あれを割らぬなら割れぬ今日までと同じ日々が明日も明後日も続こうぞ。
Here comes the manipulation.
わらわが絶対の保証をしようではないか。ベアトリーチェの名にかけて言う。割れぬ今日までと同じ日々が明日も明後日も続こうぞ。それは永久に。
Wow.
永遠に。
Wow, her voice actress is amazing. Shannon was seized by an eerie illusion. The mirror was most likely something to restrain the witch. So breaking the mirror should have been something done for the witch's sake. And yet, it felt as though Shannon had to do it for her own sake. It felt as though some premise had been switched.
わらわはあくまでも褒美としてそなたに思いを成就する機会を与えたに過ぎぬ。割ろうが割るまいがそなたの自由だ。割ればわらわはそなたの願いを叶える。割らねば今日までの明日が永遠に続く。そなたの願いは永遠に叶うことはない。わかるか？何を言っているか。
The witch was telling her, she was pressing her, saying to break the mirror if she wanted to be joined with George. Yep, the manipulation. And she was declaring that if she didn't break it, then her feelings would definitely never be fulfilled. It's a monkey. It's not the monkey's paw directly, but she is proposing that breaking the mirror is mutually beneficial.
そなたを苦しめたかったわけではないのだがな。
Easiest of manipulations.
まあいい。愛に苦しさを感じるも人間の醍醐味よ。その感情を存分に楽しむがよい。
And Shannon goes through and breaks the mirror, actually.
だが、我が力を借りたいと願ったなら、いつでもあの鏡を割るがよい。
Oh, yeah, Shannon's going to get desperate.
そして、我が名を叫び、呼び覚ますがよい。わらわは必ず約束を守るだろう。これならば文句はあるまい？そなたに今すぐの決断を迫るわけではない。気楽であろう？
Was this deal ultimately something she could feel at ease with? Definitely not. For Shannon was burning with love, tormented by passion, being tempted forever in a way, by way of escape, was far too cruel a trial.
この約束に期限は設けぬが、願いを叶える魔法には期限がある。その期限は、わらわが決めるのではない。そなたの思い人が自ら決める。意味がわかるか？
Until George finds another one, basically.
わかりません。
そなたの思い人が
愛のちぎりを結ぶべき相手を決めた時がその起源となる。わらわは魔女だが鬼ではない。互いを愛し合う二人を引き裂く魔法は持ち合わせていないのでな。
Fucking lies. There's in the epitaph right there. On the second twilight you'll tear those who are close. Oh, no fucking way. Fucking lies.
そなたの思い人は近いうちに見合いに臨むそうだな。そなたは世界で一番その男のことを思っているかもしれん。だが世界で一番ふさわしいとは限らんぞ。わらわは見合いの相手を知っている。その娘は世界で一番後宮ジョージにふさわしい。
More manipulation.
良い学校を出て良い成績を残し落ち着きがあって思慮深い。お前より美しく、お前より聡明で、お前よりふさわしい。お前のような無知無能無教養の娘がどうしてふさわしかろうか。
Shannon is an uncultured swine.
お前が一番知っている。
Oh, the voice actress.
お前が一番ふさわしくない。お前と後宮ジョージが結ばれるなど想像するだけでも罪深い。愚かしいことよ。愚かしい愚かしい身の程知れい。義務教育に行かせてもらった恩も忘れて身の程を知りなさい。
Oh my god. She's repeating Ava's words. Oh my god.
ひょっとしたら未来の後宮家を背負うことになるかもしれないと。
Oh my god, this is amazing.
その期待に応えるためにたくさんの勉強を重ねて素晴らしい大学に入り素晴らしい成績を残しているわ。
Oh my god, Beatrice is literally...
そんなジョージと無能無資格無教養な使用人風情が釣り合うと本気でお思い？
She imitated Ava perfectly. Okay. Okay.
やめろ！シャノンをいじめるな！
Oh, Kanon.
貴様は誰だ！
At that time, Shannon held her head, trying to protect her heart from the blade of Beatrice's words. Kanon ran in front of her. Kanon didn't care who this woman was. As long as he knew she was an enemy tormenting Shannon, who he loved and respected as a sister, nothing else mattered.
カノン君、下がって。この方は。
It seemed that Kanon also realized that the being standing before him was the witch of the portrait, and also that she was a terrifying being.
シャノンに褒美を取らせたかっただけだが、わらわの言葉が過ぎ、いじめてしまったようだな。
Oh, the music, I love this one.
それは謝ろう。だが、先ほどの約束は、そなたへの褒美として残していく。わらわの力が必要ならば、いつでも呼び出すといい。その方法はすでに教えた。では、これにて今宵は退散しよう。敵意の眼差しは心地よくあるが、美容にはちと悪いのでな。
Okay, Beatrice is shooting up the rankings right now. She's so good.
お前が何者か知らないが、お前はシャノンを脅かしている。二度と現れるな。
It seemed that Kanon's words made the witch horribly displeased.
言葉を選ばぬか下船め。わらわは敬う者に寛大だが、
敬わぬ者には残酷であるぞ。
While she still smiled, the witch's expression began to warp. An oppressive feeling that couldn't be described with any of the five senses gradually filled the room. Even though she could, ooh, here it comes. Oh, even though they couldn't comprehend what it was, they immediately realized to be something terrifying. If you were swimming in the ocean and something large went by the water beneath you, you would want to escape to the island, to the land, even before you learned what it was. This was the same as that.
おやめください、ベアトリーチェ様。カノン君はまだ子供なんです。言葉遣いについては謝ります。
Kanon blocked the way to Shannon at the risk of his life. There was tense sweat on his forehead. In that moment, which certainly had Kanon's fate in her clutches. She didn't even need to move a finger. Oh, she had Kanon's face so readily in her grasp that she could crush it completely with a single twist of her own smile. Oh shit. Kanon also understood that, which is why she was sweating, and his knees felt weak. Mom spaghetti. However, Beatrice abruptly released that feeling of tension and laughed.
よかろう。そなたが求めるなら特別に許そう。カノンとやら彼女に免じて今宵は許して使わす。感謝するがよいぞ。さて、今宵はこれで退散する。別れの挨拶に一つ土産を残そう。二人とも左手の手のひらをこちらへかざせ。
Beatrice grinned broadly and snapped her fingers, whereupon their left hands stretched out in front of them, their palms opened against their will. It was a strange sensation, as though only their left hands had become someone else's. It felt like their left hands alone had become puppets, pulled by strings hanging down from the ceiling.
これは何の真似だ!
Kanon resisted, but he couldn't take back the freedom of his left hand.
騒ぐな。すぐに済む。
Beatrice held her pipe aloft, and from inside, the smoke gold-colored spiking dust hovered in the air. That glitter eventually became several gold butterflies. The beautiful butterflies danced freely through the reception hall, creating a fantastical and beautiful world. And two of those butterflies aligned on the palms of Shannon's and Kanon's hands. There was a sharp pain, as though they'd been burnt. Oh, she's branding them. And the two of them tried to examine their palms. There was no trace left of their inability to move their bodies, which had been there just a second ago. She branded you. In the palm of her hand, a small burn mark had been made, the size of a pea. Furthermore, it was shaped like a butterfly. Apparently, Kanon had the same bruise on his hand. He stared at the witch hatefully.
単なる挨拶よ。他はない。ただのあざに過ぎぬから、ほんの数日で言えよう。手当ても必要ない。それは、わらわが確かに今日ここにあり、そなたと約束を交わしたことを明日に忘れさせぬための印だ。わらわとの出会いは刺激が強い。
Oh, I noticed that.
翌朝にわらわとの出会いを夢か幻と思い込み忘れようとする人間も時にはいるのでな。
So basically you burned their hands to remind them. That wasn't...
ゆっくり考えるがいいぞ、シャノン。そしてゆっくりと休み、明日の朝日に我が印を見て改めて考えてみるがいいだろう。わらわは何も強要せぬ。
そなたが自らの意志で自由に未来を決めるがいい。もっとも欲する者の対価がその程度で済むとはな。貴殿をテーマに戯曲を書き上げた偉人たちが悔しがるぞ。それでは縁があったらまた会おう。久しぶりの会話は実に楽しかったぞ。さらばだ、家具ども。
Aren't Shannon human? Isn't Shannon human? Now that she knows love. Man, she teleports away. Okay. Beatrice's body crumbled like smoke and blew away. It was golden smoke, no, a flight of golden butterflies. They scattered in all directions inside the reception hall, leaving a golden mist behind as they disappeared into thin air. After that, only the cold silence was left. The extreme silence was enough to make both of them think they might have been daydreaming just a moment ago. Which was why the witch had left it. She had left a mark to make it impossible for them to think that this was a daydream. As Shannon and Kanon thought back to the butterfly bruises on their hands and the pain they had felt when those had been left, they stood there for some time, stunned and motionless. And from that day on, Shannon was tormented by the days of suffering and conflict. Da, 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 da. I guess this is it for today. Oh. Okay, this is it for today. I'll be stopping right here. Okay, let's rank the characters. Also, she's here as well. I think nothing much has changed. Battler and Maria are still taking the top spot. BERNKASTEL isn't here, but she takes third place because I adore her voice actress so fucking much, and her design is really great. Her personality is really good. Everything about BERNKASTEL is amazing. If she is Rika from Higurashi, then I guess after that I'd say fourth place, still an S rank, would be, I guess, Beatrice right now. She's been amazing, actually. I still need more to really know, but she's been pretty good. Guess she's Battler's foil, I guess. But we'll see. So ending that with S rank, starting A rank with Rudolf. Yep. I really marinated and really liked his character. Then Ava. Ava. So good, so good. Keeps getting good. Kyrie. Next. Then Natsuhi. Natsuhi is good. She was a bit lowered for me on the climax of episode 1, but she's starting to rise again, I guess. Rosa. I need more screen time of Rosa to really know where to place her, but she has a... I'm now appreciating her design and her voice actress. Her relationship with Maria, however, I don't know. I need more screen time. I guess that's it for the A rank characters. So basically most of the siblings, only Cross and Hideyoshi, are not in A rank. Starting with B rank. Kanon. Kanon's so close to getting on A rank right now. Just one more push, I guess, for him to become A rank. And surprisingly, Shannon rised a little bit to the top of B. Got a little more screen time with her, so... But I still don't appreciate her, I guess, her trope as much. So she's always going to be a little bit down, even though there are some people that might like her. I don't like her archetype. So I'm just saying right now that she'll never rank. Only if she does something amazing. But I don't think that she'll rank higher than a B for me. B rank continues with Genji. I thought more of him. I reflected more, and Genji is nice. Genji, yeah, he's a nice character to have around, I guess. But I guess that's the B category for you. And Jessica rised this episode for me, I guess, because she was like more of a teasing girl, and I like that, I guess. And starting to see characters I really don't care about. Hideyoshi, top of C. I reflected more, and he's on top of C. He didn't do much. And I don't know. He's on the C because I don't really care about him. Then I guess Kumasawa next. Not much here as well. She's just an old lady who gets scared. That's it. That's her character, basically. Yeah, she has a little bit of emotional maturity, but not much else, I guess. And then Kinzo. Bottom of C. Right now he's inoffensive. There's not much screen time, and he's not being a drama queen. At least not yet, I guess. So he's on the bottom of C of characters I don't care about. And now D. Oh. Ending with Nanjo. See how forgettable Nanjo is as a character. I didn't even remember he was there. Bottom of C. Characters I don't care about. Bland, I guess. Then the D category. Characters I actively don't like to see on screen. Cross. He's... How do I say this? I really don't like how badly he treats Natsuhi. That's it. That's why he's on top of D. Almost bridging the gap to C where characters I don't care about. So whenever he's on screen, I actively don't like him. He has the same voice actor as Okonogi, I think, from Higurashi. And Okonogi was mentioned in this episode, so maybe there's another link to Higurashi. At least a company named Okonogi, I guess. Goda. Goda hasn't done anything major, I guess. He has bullied Shannon, though, so... But then again, Natsuhi and Eva bully Shannon, and they are on the top of the list, so... The reason I don't like Goda is that he's creepy, just that. And he's slimy, I don't like that. finally, at the bottom of characters I don't like to see on screen, George. I'm sorry, I don't know. Right now he's my least favorite character, I guess. Not to say that, I don't know. I don't like George as much. I'm sorry to say. And that's it. Thanks for watching.